Hello, my name is Ehud Turkin, and welcome to Ehud's Movie Masher, show where I take a movie of my choosing and tear it apart. Today's going to be a newer movie that just recently came out called Pacific Rim. Now, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's giant monsters, mech, sci-fi, clean action, and romance with basically impressive homages to both anime and American comic books. Make this movie a nerd paradise, and I absolutely loved it. It was everything advertised and more. Now then, for the synopsis and warning, there will be plenty of spoilers. If I skip over something, I'm sorry, I've only seen it once so far, but it was absolutely perfect in its execution, so I feel like it deserves to be talked about. So let's get started. Okay, so the movie starts off pretty strong with the best explanation of what is going on. If you've been living under a rock for the past 6 months, here's the short version. Giant alien monsters called Kaiju are invading Earth through a rift in time and space at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. After 2 or 3 attacks, the world decided that the best way to fight them is with giant humanoid robots. This turns out to be both a great plan since they are able to defeat the monsters and the pilots become famous overnight. Here's the kick of the movie. Both the Kaiju and the giant robots called Jagers both have fan clubs of different people that are in this world. The Jager pilots are pairs of people since they meld minds in order to share the mental load of the Jager. The movie basically says that the pilots become famous overnight and they let it go to their heads a bit. Okay, so movie really starts. We are introduced to 2 pilots. The first one of their names escapes me. The other one is the narrator, whose name is Raylan Beckett. So they are woken up to go fight a kaiju out in the middle of the ocean. And of course, one of the best fight scenes I have ever seen ensues. This turns out to be just an opening to the idea that the kaiju are getting better and better, that maybe the Jager pilots are not up to the task of defeating them, since Raylan's brother ends up getting pulled out of the Jager, forcing Raylan to have to finish off the giant kaiju by himself. Now, here's just a little side note about this. I honestly wanted to sit up in the theater, go, alright, I'm done, as soon as the opening title came on. That is pretty much how good these fight scenes are. They just suck you in and they make you want more, but they don't feel like you didn't give them enough. So, what happens? Raylan ends up proceeding on to land onto a beach and crash landing. He passes out in a giant pool of his own blood as an old guy is like, go get help! So, cut to 5 years later and the Jager program is gonna be shut down. They're basically saying, oh, well, the Jagers are too expensive and we're just gonna build a giant wall around ourselves. Raylan is actually helping build the wall since, well, if you're building the wall, you get food. But it doesn't really seem all that hopeful, and the movie definitely tells you that when you get to see a giant scene of a kaiju within a few minutes just bursting through the wall in Sydney, Australia. A bunch of people are yelling out, why are we building this wall? Then all of a sudden, giant helicopter shows up with the Marshal, who was already introduced. Now, he's one of the characters that's kind of all out through the movie, but so he asked Raylan to come with him to Hong Kong and live out the last of the Jager days with him fighting the kaiju. Raylan says no, he doesn't want to, and the Marshal yells out and says probably one of the best lines, I think, of the movie. Do you want to die here or out there in a Jager? I want to die out in a Jager. Now, I'm going to say this about the Marshal. He's not a good character. He's not bad, just not very good. He yells and acts like he shouldn't care about what he's talking about, and really, why should we care about him? Yet, I never felt like he could be replaced by anyone else. So, on that note, we get introduced to one of the other characters that is pretty much the next major character, Macco. She lived in Hong Kong, and she basically just sort of seems like an overglorified secretary at first, but then we learn, oh wait, she's been trained to become a Jager pilot, blah, blah, blah. And it's not really that bad, but it's not all that good either. So, we get introduced to her, they ask about her, and then we find out that, why isn't she going to be placed into this big, giant deciding thing that seems like we should care about more than it's actually developed, but still. And then we are introduced along the way to the rest of the remaining Jager pilots. Team of 2 Russians, which seem like they should be just the biggest stereotypes of Russian, big guy, there's one big guy with a big burly beard, another one with a husky woman. They got the bright blonde hair. They look Russian. And then they got another team, which is, the Hong Kong local boys. They got, they're called, I think they're called the Scarlet, the Crimson Scarlets or whatever. And they basically use this giant Jaeger who has 2 arms on one side and 1 arm on the other. It looks really good. So, we were also along the way, we're introduced to these 2 scientists, I love these scientists, and I really am not going to tell a lot of their story just because it's a really big story. It's a really big piece of the story. So, one of them is actually a Kaiju groupie, the other one just a little awkward, and they're talking to the Marshals at one point in time, and one of them says, oh wait, why don't we just try mind melding them, because look at this and look at this. They're actually clones. The Kaiju, even though they all look different, are actually just clones of the same thing. But they say, hey, no, we're not going to let you do that. But, all of a sudden, the groupie scientist decides, I am going to do it anyway. And so what he does is he sets up basically what was the same thing that the Jaeger pilots do and mind melds with the... this is hilarious. He might just meld with a piece of the brain, basically. So, he does so, and he learns, oh my gosh, the Kaiju aren't actually these giant monsters. They're foot soldiers. They're like hunting dogs. They're just here to push out the vermin in the world so that aliens can show up. Who is the vermin? We are. So, this is sort of like the understory that will go on, but, that's not the reason they got you on the thing. It's just sort of just to explain absolutely everything that's going on. So, I'm going to keep that a secret of what actually happens to them, since it's got some very interesting characters to it, but it has basically not the reason why I think is the best reason to get somebody in the theater. I'm going to get you in the theater basically just because of giant robot fights that are just totally worth going and watching giant robot fights. So the next half of the movie basically just dedicated to the idea that Ray needs to find a co-pilot, and Macco wants to be that co-pilot. The sad thing is that this really doesn't kind of work out, because the Marshal is kind of acting all fatherly and says, no, you can't be the pilot. But he finally gives in and let them basically test out their giant robot, and something goes wrong. Ray kind of catches on to the memory of his brother dying, and all the stupid motion memories that happen there. And then we get the flashback to when Macco's a little girl and gets attacked by a Kaiju because and basically she starts wanting to fire off the plasma cannon at civilians. And it's just this really amazingly done emotional scene. It's not what I would call the most well done emotional scene, but it's pretty damn good. Now, this ends with them having to shut down the Jaeger, and everyone's like, why'd you do that? And you're never going to pilot a Jaeger again, kind of thing. And Ray goes up to him, and it's like, I know why you don't want her to pilot the Jaeger. It's because you have daddy issues or something. And it was he saved her from the Kaiju. So we now get probably in my mind, the best battle. 2 Kaiju, which had never happened before, come out of the rift at the same time, are about to attack Hong Kong. Now, what happens is they come out of the sea and they send out 3 of the Jaegers. The Aussies, the Hong Kong people, and then the Russians. And they basically said to the Aussies, stay back because you've got a nuke strapped to your back. You're going to try to drop down in the rift. That's literally their plan of stopping the Kaiju. We're just going to drop a nuke into the rift. So we get to see this really one-sided battle between giant robots and monsters, and the monsters are basically the ones that are dominating. So they go out and they fight, and they kill off the Hong Kong local boys, and then Aussies are running in, trying to oh, we're gonna save you, because they don't know how to obey orders. The Russians get shoved in the water, and they start to drown, and then all you see is one of the explosion in the hand, and then you're like, oh, wow, the Russians died. Huh. And you kind of get this feeling in your head, how easy is it to kill a Jaeger? Like, how often do these things die? But then, this kind of has an explanation with the whole Jager system, the Kaiju rating system. They had levels 1 through 5, and these ones that are coming out were level 4. So, they were pretty much the best. And then no one's ever seen a level 5 yet, so Oh, kind of told you that you were gonna see a level 5 later on. So you're gonna see probably what is the best battle when the Marshal turns to Macco and Ray. You guys get out there. You know, basically saying, okay, you guys have the last hope of humanity. Kill these things, because we obviously can't. So you get what is, in my mind, the best fight scene ever. Just, I'm not even telling you what makes it good. I'm just gonna say, go to the movies, watch this, and be blown away by how good this scene is performed. It's beyond epic, it's beyond great, it just, the best. So, we now get the idea that, you know, the best pilots are Macco and Ray. They got the best machine, everything. And what happens is, we get the idea now that we have that in our way, we gotta get the idea, oh wow, they are actually really good at this. So why don't we send them alongside the Aussies who surprisingly survived the battle, and we're going to send them into the Rift to drop a giant nuclear bomb. Now, I'm not going to spoil the final scene, the last half hour of the movie, or 15 minutes. I can't even tell you how long this movie was. It's just good. I got lost in it. And that's why I'm not going to spoil the ending. The ending is both predictable yet satisfying. And I want you guys to pay attention to the last thing you see in this movie, the last little part of it, that last few, maybe a minute, that it doesn't cut to the credits. And I want you to post in the comments, what is it about that ending that's different from every other movie ending within like the past 20 years that are similar to it? There's something there that I think deserves a lot more recognition than it does. So, yeah, this may not have been the best place to start off this whole MASH the movie series I'm doing. So why would I even start off with it? Well, because it will tie into my next video that I'll be posting up about the development of art. So, you know what? I was happy that I found a current movie that I really absolutely loved the idea of it. And it was a good movie at the same time. It wasn't a sequel or something. It wasn't based on a book. It wasn't a remake of a movie. I mean, the only thing you could say is that it was giant robots versus monsters, which is a lot in Japanese stuff, but it's not seen that often, you know? So that's why I liked it. It was something somewhat original that was done in such an amazing way. The other reason is because I really like the old Godzilla movies, and I absolutely want to see them revived. Ugh! I love all those old movies. So the main reason why you should see this movie, it's something original. It's something good. It's performed not just adequately, but amazingly well. And you'll get sucked into it. This isn't just a movie that lived up to the expectations of what it was advertised as. No, it was surpassed by it. It said, hey, we're going to take these few ideas, work them together, here you go. But I don't even think the directors knew that just by performing them the way they did, they made a movie that very much could restart an entire genre of movies. So, I didn't mash this movie. I'm actually pretty much in love with it. I'm Ehud Turkin. Subscribe, post a comment. Hey, tell me what kind of movies you like. What movie you want me to do. I'm gonna do a Fast and the Furious rant here on Movie Mash. I do have a friend who's absolutely in love with the movies. Who's gonna help me out with them. He's gonna give the positive review or the positive side of that. So subscribe. Do you ever find that you really want a movie done, old, new, vintage, or niche? I may even try to find it. I'm Ehud Turkin, and this movie can't be mashed.